I take this off?
Yes.
I'm Aaron DeBlois. I'm an alcoholic.
Amen.
Hello out there in Zoom land. All right, got quite a few. Appreciate the introduction, I think, Steve. You know, it's funny that the true story of what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me is in my personal life, and it's, you know, we hardly scratch the surface there. You know, like what it's done for me in my family, with my relationship with my family members, in my community, in my work. And I'm going to talk about that, but it just dawned on me that, you know, I don't know that we see a lot of that. You know, we see each other on, you know, in here, and you know, we can tell people are generally doing what they're supposed to be doing, but the true miracle lies in the details. I think in that, you know, our personal affairs, practice these principles in all our affairs when we leave here. You know, but I appreciate the words. Again, my name's Aaron DeBlois. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is December 1st, 2002, and I'm a member of the Cleveland 12-Step group. Meets in Clayton, North Carolina, not Garner. Just want to clarify. And we meet on Wednesday nights, and we have a speaker meeting. And well, on the first Wednesday, we really just we only meet once a week, so we try to roll through and study the traditions and the steps and AA literature, and have an open speaker meeting, and occasionally, you know, study history and those sorts of things. Just want to touch on the basics on what it, you know, what Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. You know, I'm a firm believer in the traditions that have served me just as much as the steps have, with regards to all those things I was talking about outside of these rooms when I leave here. You know, outside of my willingness to help an alcoholic recover. You know, so I guess my job here tonight is really just tell you what I was like, what happened to me, and what it's like for me today to live sober. And that's either going to take 20 or 90 minutes. I'm not sure. So, you know, I'm just kidding. You know, I'll be out of here on time. Zoomland, you can just all leave anytime you want, right? Nobody sees you getting up. You know, it's like, man, you got the best of both worlds. So, anyway, I'm just going to get started. I don't know where I'm going to get started. How's that? I paused there. So, paused when agitated, I guess. Yeah, so I was, you know, I don't even know where to begin, to be honest with you. I normally, you think I had never told my story before, but the reality is it changed a little each time, you know. But I was the youngest of 6 kids, and you know, my parents divorced when I was young, and it was kind of just rocked my world. Up to that time, I felt like that I was secure and safe, and after that time, I never felt secure and safe again, until I got in Alcoholics Anonymous and found some recovery and some spirituality, and formed some kind of relationship with something bigger than Aaron. You know, because when I was running the show, it was kind of scary out there, you know. So I was the youngest by a long way. You know, 6 years was my next sister, and then they all go up from there. So when my parents got divorced and we stayed with my father, there was a lot of partying going on, and it was wild. You know, I learned the alcohol and partying scared me. You know, there was a lot of other stuff going on, but I didn't see it. But I knew drinking. Drinking was in my family. It was always there, you know. But, you know, like those parties, and I've shared that, those parties would start out, I had a healthy respect for alcohol and a good fear of it. And not because anybody was blatantly an alcoholic in my family, and there may be some, and that's not for me to decide, but nobody's living under a bridge. They all seem to be doing okay. They didn't seem to have the consequences I did. They seemed to manage better than I did. You know, so the parties were every weekend, and, you know, and Friday they started out great. There were 2-day parties every weekend. My dad would go away to see a girlfriend or whoever he was dating, or go on a fishing trip, and he'd come back Sunday night like clockwork about the same time. So I never really quite understood why he never come home early until I had kids of my own. And, you know, I'm a guy that's going to call my kids when I'm on the way home. I do not want to know what's going on if I'm not there. You know, I'm smart enough to know if they can put it back together before I get there, it's good. You know. So, but, you know, that party would start out all fun. Everybody was happy, and, you know, and then just everybody was just having a great time. I loved it. It was, you know, just an upbeat atmosphere of music, and everybody was friends and hugging on each other. Everybody's telling them they love each other. And then, partly through the night, a few arguments going on, and by the end of the night, there's a guy in the bushes saying he's throwing up, saying he's going to die, and there's two guys, fighting on the front yard saying they're going to kill each other. And I'm believing all of them because I'm younger. I'm like, oh my God, there's people dying over here, and these guys are going to kill each other, and nobody would try to help them. I'm running around as a little kid trying to, I go from serving alcohol to trying to solve these problems. It's like, man, we got to help these people, and nobody cares, I'm like, they're like, he's not dying. He said he is dying. He's pretty sick. I don't know. And so I had two experiences with alcohol before the age of 16. I don't exactly know what ages, but the first one was on a 4th of July weekend, and this was the first time I got drunk, and I was sitting in the kitchen in my father's girlfriend's house. It was just a party. Alcohol was always around. And I can remember watching them pour vodka into orange juice. And I like orange juice, so I had some orange juice. So I poured a little vodka in there. I'm just hanging in the kitchen. People were just coming in and out. Nobody saw it. And I still remember that kind of that warm feeling, So I would just pour a little more orange juice and a little more vodka. The taste didn't offend me at all. It kind of had a warm taste to it. And, I just drink. But the next thing I know, the room was spinning on me. And I woke, they found me laying in a pile of vomit on the front porch. And, I went from there, comfortable and feeling, okay, this is kind of interesting, to laying in a pile of vomit. And I'd like to say my drinking got better over the next 20 years, but it never did. Really, that was it. Right through the mark of comfortably numb, So I thought there was going to be this big fallout. My dad was a tough man. You didn't mess around with him. You really didn't disrespect him. You didn't always have to listen to what he said, but attitude wasn't tolerated. So I was afraid of him, and I was concerned of what he was going to say. And the only thing he said, Aaron, if you can't control your drinking, you shouldn't drink. So younger, maybe 13 years old, I figured I need to learn how to control my drinking, because not drinking ain't an option. Because all my people that I respected in my family, I never remember in a family occasion without alcohol not being front and center. You know what I mean? It was like, roll in the door, get a drink, and let's eat some food, do whatever, I can remember hunting, young boy, drinking blackberry brandy, walking through the snow, small game hunting, maybe, 11 years old, and, and didn't really ever catch a buzz from it, but every time I complained about being cold, my dad would say, here, have a little of that, and it warmed me up good, I had a serious issue with blackberry brandy for a long time, but I'm not going to leave that outside. That's whatever. So the second time I remember drinking, I think I was a little bit older. I think I was maybe 14, 15, and I got invited to the neighborhood cake party, which was a prestigious thing, it was every year, it was annually, and it was at my friend's older brother and sister's house, and this was the deal, it was a big deal. So I don't know what happened, but evidently I insulted I gave this grown man some crap, and he threw a beer in my face, and I pulled out a knife on him, and I was going to cut him, and it was one of them old yellow fishing knives you'd buy from Kmart with a little scaler on the back. It was dull when I bought it, and I probably tried to cut concrete with it for about 3 years before I tried to pull it out on this guy. So I'm telling you, there was no chance I was going to hurt anybody with that thing. But alcohol took me every time from a scared, shy, just meek feeling individual to just a self-proclaimed badass. From as soon as I poured in me, I didn't care. I thought I was tougher than you, or badder than you, or better than you, or I didn't care. So when that guy splashed that beer in my face, there was not a moment's thought about pulling a knife on him. I can remember after that settled down. So they didn't let that guy beat my tail, because he would have, And I want to tell you, this guy, he was really a brute. Everybody knew it. You didn't mess with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just didn't in general, sober or drunk. You didn't mess with this guy. And I knew that. He was somewhat of a legend when I was a young kid, and just as this maniac, and I didn't think twice about pulling a knife on him. So I share that with you because that's what alcohol did for me. So I put put that away. Obviously, I didn't become a daily drinker at that point, but at 16 years old, I had had enough of my mind. I started feeling full of fear and feeling less than, and feeling cheated and lonely and depressed and self-pity and all that stuff long before I took a drink. And pretty bad. And I couldn't shut my brain off, and it would just obsess and spin. And so at 16 years old, I made the conscious decision to drink for oblivion. Alcoholically, I'll say it today. I didn't know it then. It was on. There was nothing social about it. From that first night, I still remember. I went over to my sister's house, and it was just a wild night. And I never looked back. And I can remember the next morning feeling absolutely terrible, being up all night drinking, but absolutely convinced that that was my new way of life. So I can tell you for the next, I don't know, maybe 10 years, alcohol really saved my life. I mean, it did for me what I couldn't do for myself. It gave me the ability to accomplish things that I couldn't do without it. It stopped me from wanting to kill myself on a daily basis and gave me an outlet to be angry. So what happened was, instead of all this self-reflecting nonsense going on inside me, I just became an angry person, and I would just fight. A lot of fighting, Back then you could fight and not, kill one another, You could beat each other up, roll around in the grass, and, it was okay, or, you could take a few lumps and you could give a few lumps, and really, I mean, it was just, I don't know if there's a good, there's any kind of good fighting. I'm not saying there is, but so that was it. So I kind of stayed that way. A good night for a long time. Looked for me. It looked like to drink a bunch of Jack Daniels and get in a fist fight, and then find a girl. Sometimes I could combine the fight and the girl in the same time if I could approach the wrong couple at the wrong time. I can assure you that wasn't a very successful plan. I mean, it wasn't like I went out and executed that and was successful with it, like, ever, but like, it made me feel good, It made me feel good to be angry versus sad and depressed and all that stuff. So it was a relief for those emotions, I guess. I don't know. I really never paid too much attention to it, but I continued to drink, and like I said, it worked for a long time. Like, it really, I mean, there were consequences. People started to not want to hang out with me. Friends that I had made were, and I didn't make friends very easy, but the friends I had made since I started drinking were some of the hardest drinkers in my township, and they were like alienating me because of my drinking. More from the fighting and the outburst I would have after I had a good drink, drank a lot of alcohol. And, people used to make the comments, I don't know how you're still standing, because I would just consume alcohol over a long period of time, just in mass quantities, and just my tolerance was high. So I would never at that point be able to connect any of the stuff going on, any of the consequences or with my drinking. But what I can tell you is, as bad as I felt before I started drinking, about that loneliness and despair and all those feelings of remorse or just alcohol would take them away. And as my alcoholism progressed, it would continue to take those away. But when I would come to, they would just be so severe, I could hardly tolerate them. And then there was all levels of guilt and wondering what was going on, and what did I say, and what did I do, and where's my car, and cringing when you're looking at the front of your car, making sure hoping there's no dent on there, or, it was just, so I'll say this, and for a long time, even when I would say alcohol was working, when I poured in me, I was absolutely confident, didn't need you, didn't care what you thought. Like I said, just kind of as a self-proclaimed badass. And the minute it wore off, I was like basically hiding under the table, sucking my thumb, wanting you to take care of me, telling me everything was going to be okay, and just look out for me and make me feel better. Like bam, bam. There was like, there was no in the middle. I assure you, ever. So, I started to question why I was feeling so bad when I wasn't, intoxicated all the time. And, so at that time, I started having some success with some things in life, a career. I was an electrician, and that was going well when I could, I always showed up for work, but when I could function decently, that was kind of my go-to thing is I always showed up for work and I worked hard, no matter how sick I was. And I thought that just lended some, I don't know, something to my self-worth, whatever, but they'd get, twice the work out of me in half the time, 3 days a week, so like I was producing more than two guys in a week in 3 days, it's just kind of that maniac mentality, and I had some success with girls, and which I was always shy about, and so alcohol gave me some lubricant, social lubricant to start venturing down that road, and but I'd been in and out of some relationships, and I'll say this, that I at that time I was as in my late 20s, I was kind of in a place where I was couch surfing a lot and would meet people, girls, and we would hang out. And I always had money for partying. I couldn't make a truck payment. I almost had two repossessed, but I had plenty of money for party supplies. And I would share with you, if you needed some rent money, if I had a little bit, I'd give it to you so I could keep crashing on your couch or whatever. I was a generous guy, and that's how I felt. And I always tried to, meet a girl or get connected with a girl maybe who had some problems, some issues, so maybe that my drinking wouldn't be so glaring, But I've never met a girl with that many problems because my drinking was always an issue, always. So I started early, leaving. As soon as my alcohol was talked about or you started getting upset about that, I was gone, like literally gone. I was engaged for 5 years to this girl, and we bought a home. We had just bought a car together. I'm like, literally, our names were on the deed and on the title. And I was trying to control my drinking. I was trying in that place and trying to play house, and she told me that, she'd joke around with me about my drinking, but she had some heavy drinkers in her family. She tolerated that okay. Laugh at me more than bust my chops about it, because if I started drinking on Thursday, I'd be okay. But if I had to wait till Friday, from Sunday to Friday, I usually would just consume so much alcohol so fast that I'd wind up throwing up and making a scene or in the bushes. But if I could start drinking on Thursday and meter that in to take that edge off, I could usually avoid the vomiting for the weekend. But Thursday turned into Monday through Thursday turned into Tuesday through Wednesday. It's like, so I really was not able to drink the way I wanted to, But now I had been living there and working and trying to, and not blowing all my money on stuff. So, I started to have a little savings, and I was like, started to get resentful that I couldn't drink the way I wanted to, It was all her fault, So she came in one day, she borrowed my truck to go somewhere, and she came back and she found a little bit of an outside issue in the ashtray. And she came in and says, I'm not marrying a drug addict. All that drinking, that's what she said. And I said, you're right, you shouldn't, And I left. And I left, literally, with nothing. I never came back. I came back it was probably about 2 months later that she came and found me, and they were going to sell the house, and I had to get my name off the deed. And she put papers in front of me in a bar that I should sign, and I signed them. I didn't even look at them. I didn't care, Evidently, it was just to change the title over to get my name off the whatever it was. But and the same with the car. But I never looked back. I just never. And I started drinking daily at that point. It was like every day. I'd stop. I got a little apartment close to work, and I'd stop on the way home, and that barmaid would pour me a glass of Jack Daniels and a 23-ounce draft beer, and I would drink 3 of them, usually under 30 minutes. So you can do the math. That's a lot of alcohol in 30 minutes. And then I would drive home to that little apartment and just continue to get drunk or drink more or pass out or, it wasn't uncommon on a Friday or to do that twice, get drunk after work. I had a lot of nice people want to spend time with me and offer to do things with me. Hey, like quality people and quality, girls that would say, hey, we're all going out. Why don't you come out with us? We're going to meet at the club at 10. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to get home at 4 and be able to go anywhere at 10 o'clock. I mean, that's not possible. You didn't have Uber, I mean, I don't know what state I would be in. I may or may not be conscious come 10 o'clock, Certainly couldn't drive. I knew enough that I couldn't drive, So I really wanted to try to control that, and I knew it was getting out of hand. And, I at that point in time, I had gone to, a doctor, a psychiatrist, and because, I was just getting into a dark place. I was just consuming a lot of alcohol, and life wasn't going the way I wanted to, and people were alienating me because of the drinking. They just couldn't be around it. I mean, I had a good friend tell me how much he cared for me and that he couldn't be around me anymore. I even tried to stop drinking for him. I said, I'm going to stop. I don't want to lose you as a friend. And he said, he didn't want to, he wasn't even going to hang around for that. It was just too painful to watch, And that really blew my doors off, because he was a good friend, We did a lot of things together, and I thought we had a good bond. But my drinking was so destructive just to be in its presence, I guess he intuitively knew I was going to have no luck not drinking. And, he did what he had to do, and I respect that. But so I'd gone to, that psychiatrist and tried to get some help. And he said, yeah, you probably got this, you probably got that. And I'm like, yeah, because my sister, she has some mental illness, some diagnosed, mental illness she struggles with. And I thought maybe I had some of that, So I bought into what they were telling me, and they always asked the same question, do you drink? No. No, I do not. And they'd go and they'd try to help me, and I'd lay my sob story on them, and and feel sorry for me, and they don't know that they feel sorry for me, but they certainly tried to fix me with their prescription pad, and that went on for a long time. So I'll just say this, that what it turned out to be, and I'll get to that in a little bit, how I resolved that, was that I just had untreated alcoholism. I had no beacons in life to live by, which I know today, just spiritual principles or just some guidance, or, just some. I was never an unmoral person. I didn't walk around like, but I just didn't have anything bigger than myself to hang on to. I just didn't have any concept of a higher power or anything greater than me. And I thought this was it. I'm in the trench. My trouble was in the trench. This is it. I didn't see any way out, So I moved in and out of a few relationships and apartments. I dated this girl for a year, and our leases ran out, separate leases. It was a terrible relationship. Argued every weekend, disagreed on everything, but she never talked about my drinking. So the right thing to do was move in together, So we rented an apartment on the 3rd floor, and I had all my friends come over, and even my dad was there, and he helped me move all this furniture up these 3 flights of stairs, because I had acquired a few over the, moving around. And I'm not lying when I say this, but it was probably 3 weeks later that she started, talking about my drinking. I'm like, no. And so I had all those people come help me move all that furniture back down, and I went and got an apartment by myself. This is it. Nobody's going to mess with me now. But when I was leaving there, I had met this girl, and we had walked dogs. Me and this girl I was living with had a dog, and she had a dog, and I was just really smitten with her, if that's okay to use. But we had a lot of nice conversations. But so I saw her that last night. She was out there walking a dog, so I grabbed this dog, and ran downstairs and act like created a happen chance, And we're walking. I'm like, hey, just having a conversation. I said, listen, would you like to go out sometime? And I still remember the look on her face like, you live up there with a woman? And because she wouldn't have gone for that, And I said, no, I'm moving out. She said, okay, well, maybe you can, give me a call once you get settled. I said, I'm moving tomorrow. So she looked at me again, so she finally conceded that, and that we could go out sometime. And So I didn't wait long, and I was absolutely, I was taken by her. I mean, she was beautiful and smart, and she was, why she had anything to do with me, I don't understand, to be honest with you, at that point in time. She definitely, she could have done a lot better. But we'd have these conversations. I remember looking at her, and it was like she was speaking a foreign language. She was talking about going to the grocery store and things like that, and taking the dog to the vet, and like her job. And I'm like, what is this stuff? I'm thinking, I'm trying to avoid, incarceration or getting arrested, or trying not to drink, or trying to not, get arrested for fighting, or, and doing that sort of thing, and trying not to lose my job, and, trying to, everywhere I go, trying to keep it right over here. And so I remember that night when she said she would go out with me. I went to the doctor's the next day, that psychiatrist, and I said, you got to fix me now. Like, we need to rapid cure, because I got something on the line, I mean, this is, and there again, he asked the question again, do you drink? Are you having any problem with that? No. But so we started dating 3 weeks after we started dating. I asked her to marry me, and 9 months later we were married. And I pretty much just, outside of her being willing, I made all that happen. I paid for the wedding. I basically planned that whole wedding. I was like a man on a mission. I had a war plan. It was like everything. It had everything from, hired a caterer, and I can remember that next day after she said she would marry me. I didn't even have a ring. I just asked her, and she said yes. That's crazy. So I the next day had secured a hall and a preacher to marry us. And I remember calling her. I was so excited. I can still hear the silence on the phone. It was deafening. She's like, this guy is like out there, like, man, it's like I'm like on it. So I did that because I knew I couldn't let her get away. It was my only shot I've ever really had at any kind of thing normal. And I was absolutely convinced that she was going to make me better. And so we did a lot of drinking during that courtship, and she would say to me that, I don't drink this way. We're drinking a lot. And I said, I don't either. But we just kind of caught up in this whirlwind romance, and let's just, we get married and we'll stop, But so this was a long time ago, but after we got back from our honeymoon, and I acquired about a $700-800 liquor bill on a cruise ship, and suffered some alcohol poisoning when I got home, she quit. I didn't know what alcohol poisoning was, by the way. I thought I just had the flu or wasn't feeling well, but and she quit and I couldn't, and I didn't, and she didn't drink for a while after that, and so. But my drinking was escalating because I pretty much imploded at that time, I did everything. It took so much energy, and my alcoholism was wanting to progress. I was hiding as much as I was showing or drinking, and I was just like, man, I just got to get down. As a matter of fact, my best man at my wedding, I said, you come tell me when you see her, because I was convinced she wasn't coming. He brought me a glass of Jack Daniels on that morning, and he said, here, she's here. I'm like, here we go, and it was off, I didn't think she was going to show, to be honest with you. So we'll be married 24 years on the 14th of this month. So there is some. That's a gift to Alcoholics Anonymous there. But so the long story short is that I imploded, and I just couldn't function anymore. And I'd been late to work every day for about 9 years, and I came in one day and I had a new boss, and he said, you can't be late anymore. I have to write you up. 3 times you're fired. Oh my God, man, that was all. I couldn't even handle that. I mean, I'm like, phew. So I went out on to work. I mean, there's a big drama story about that, me trying to manipulate the company and get my way so I can just do what I want to do. I'd been there for a while, and but I went out of work on disability, and anxiety disability. Same doctor. You're not drinking, are you? No. So I used to think when I first got sober, and if I told this story then, I would tell you that I was pretty much running a scam on them. But I can honestly tell you today that I was unemployable. I couldn't function. I couldn't deal with the stress of life and knowing, why am I drinking like this? I mean, I've got this wonderful situation going on, and this wonderful wife that, it's just like, I was perplexed by what was going on with me. So I went out of work, and then I really started drinking daily. She was at work, and I was drinking most days, and I got arrested for a DWI, but she saw me. She left. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and so I was unemployable. I was out of work, drinking every day, and she went to bed around 11:30, and I've been drinking Jack Daniels, and I would just go. I thought there was something happening, some fun party somewhere, It was like, yay, they're waiting on me, And so I'd go out and head out the door, And, well, this one time, she went to bed about 11:30, and she said, don't go anywhere, please. Promise me you won't leave the house. I said, okay. But she got a call around 3 o'clock in the morning that I had been arrested and that I was in the hospital. That's all they told her. So, long story short, I pulled some kind of funny stuff in the police station, faked a panic attack. They took me to the hospital, and I thought I was going to get out of having to give them my blood, just drunk as a skunk, trying to scam everybody like I'm smarter than everybody. And so she came to the hospital, and then I showed up to court drunk. And I don't advise that, I'll say that I'll put it in perspective. I told you how I drink, and I stopped at the bar for about 45 minutes on my way to court, and I got the job done. And the lawyer told the judge that I'd been drinking, and he asked me. He said the lawyer told me that he thinks you've been drinking, and they'll give you a pass. I want to tell you first, I did show up late to court, and I pulled up right out front and parked illegally in the fire lane. And walk right in the front of the courthouse, like just alcohol, like a badass, like the John Wayne coming in, out of my way, It's crazy. And so he told the judge that, and I no sooner did that judge ask me, have you been drinking? Did I spit out? I had a few O'Douls. And my tongue's getting thick, and the courtroom's starting to spin, and I'm just praying I don't vomit right here, because it was like, I was intense, it was hot, and I was stressed, and, it was like, man, this is not going to be good. And so I drove home. I actually went back to the bar, and he asked me if I had a ride home, and I said I did. And I remember thinking to myself, it's parked right out front. So I was fast forward, and so I started getting crazier and crazier, and I got the bright idea one day that I would, that guy that told me to be late, I can't be late to work anymore, that I would shoot his house up, and just let him know you can't treat people that way, And my wife kind of got wind of that, and she kind of interrupted. It was a big drama scene, and we were wrestling with the gun. Not wrestling physically, but she was going one way with the gun, and I was going one way with the shells. And I really thought if I could explain to her what I was doing, that I wasn't going to go kill anybody. I just want to shoot his house up. That she would have been on board, and she would have maybe been supportive, and maybe even drive for me. I don't know, like Bonnie and Clyde or something. And I'm kidding. And but she didn't, and I didn't. Thank God for that, And I don't know how far I would have got, but my intentions weren't bad. I mean, I had no intention to hurt anybody. I really didn't. I just wanted to show people you can't treat people that way. You can't tell them to be on time to work. And I can tell you, as a guy that hires people, that's always in the back of my mind. I hope I don't hire a crazy Aaron one day, But it's been very good. I joke, but so, and then one of the last escapades before we moved, it was I've been drinking, and I had just watched a Patrick Swayze movie, Roadhouse. That guy stitched himself up, and I had a big cyst on my chest. I was actually scheduled to go get it taken out, but I thought, man, you got to be self-sufficient. What kind of man would I be if I let a doctor take that out of me? So I got my buck knife. It was a new knife. It was clean, and I cut that cyst out of me, and I remember trying to wake my wife up because I forgot about the needle and thread. So I'm whispering to her, at 3 o'clock in the morning, psst, where's the needle and thread? When your drunk husband whispers something like that at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to wake up. You want to know what's going on. And, that thing bled. It looked like we slaughtered a calf in that bathroom because it just bled. I didn't know. I mean, I felt nothing. But the good news is that I did a good job because I had another one removed, and the dermatologist said, yeah, he did a good job. And she was right there to witness that, But so I digress. I'm sorry. And so we decided we're going to move to North Carolina, and because my job, I went back to work, and it was closing down. So I took a severance package, and I came to North Carolina. And I was an electrician. There was a lot of work here, so I just jumped in. We were just young, going to raise family. So at this point, I told her I wasn't going to drink in North Carolina, and that was a lie. I didn't mean it, but I was walking the dog with a bag of toothpaste in my pocket every night and hiding bottles of liquor in the foundations of the houses being built. And I was a pretty good hider. I found most of my bottles. I don't know, And but that was the healthiest dog, and I had the freshest breath. But and then I would always have my backup plan of O'Doul's in the refrigerator. So, my wife said long before I read the literature, she did. She said, you must be allergic to alcohol because you drink an O'Doul's and you'll smell like Jack Daniels all night. I know it's crazy, isn't it? But that's what I would do, just to alcohol in my breath. And so I couldn't do it, and I would hide in that shed. We had that builder build us a little shed. And this is kind of what happened, and I just hid out there, after that DUI and that $10,000 the state of New Jersey took from me, and I just didn't want to go through any more drama, and I was absolutely. This time we had twins. We had a boy and a girl, and they were just beautiful wife. We had just bought a brand new home. I mean, literally, the fence was white. It was. I mean, you couldn't paint a bigger picture. Everything I thought I was cheated out of when I was a young man, as a boy, I had. And I was blowing it. Like, I was trying to burn it down. It was like I was trying to set it on fire every weekend. It was terrible. So I'd hide in that shed with that little 8x8 shed with my little pull chain fixture, and I'd drink and do whatever I was doing out there. And she'd knock on that shed once in a while, and I remember one night she knocked on that shed and she's telling me to come out, and it was right there. I took a hatchet, it was there, and I swung at that door, and it was a steel door, put a big gash in it, and just told her to leave me alone, And because I felt so lost and so in such a dark place, and I saw no way out of where I was, the hole was too deep, the hill was too hard to climb, I didn't know there was a solution for what I had. And so, long story short, is I came in one night, and she gave me some stuff, and then I told her that she needed. I really just told her to shut up, and that that if she said another word, that I threatened her life, and then I told her that I was going to kill myself, and so I asked her not to. And she didn't say anything. So I went in the room, and I remember I cried, and I was panicked, and I was lost, and I didn't know what was going on, or why I would say such a thing, or why I even felt that angry, or where did that come from. And so that following week, I tried to fix me. I wrote a plan. I have that plan. It's like 12 pages. And I was in I was asked to be on a panel to speak about powerlessness over alcohol, and I brought my list with me because I don't know what better to say. This was everything I thought I had. Join a church, start working out, eat healthy, whatever. Everything I've ever heard anybody say help them grow as a person or overcome any obstacles, it was in that plan. But the plan also said it's 10 a.m. I'll start tomorrow because I'm already high, and so the telling date is a week later when it says plan failed. And I wrote that date on there because I was perplexed. I didn't want to be that person anymore. So I went to intensive outpatient and asked if I could join their club, and they said sure, come on in. And so I went to one intensive outpatient program meeting. Before I went, they gave me all this literature and said, you can't be on all this medication you're on. So I went back to that doctor and said, I'm stopping it all. And he's like, whoa, you don't do that. It's not safe. I said, I'm going to get help for my marijuana problem. And he said, okay, so you don't have a drinking problem? I said, no. So, but when I went home, I went to that intensive outpatient program a Tuesday night, and I came home and I threw out all that medicine, and then the ice storm that night of 2002 hit. And I basically had a detox from everything, the alcohol, the outside substances I was doing, all the pharmaceutical medication the doctor had me on for a while. And during that time, my wife took care of me. And she literally, put cold compresses on my head. She would read her Bible to me and pray with me and pray for me and just sit there and tell me that the things I was seeing weren't real and that I wasn't going to die and I was okay. And I still am blown away by that level of compassion, and love. Really. So she did that for me until I was well. It was a couple days, and then I got myself. I remember sitting up in bed during this process, and I had the moment of clarity that I think that some of us talk about, is that I realized that if I don't do something about my drinking, I'm never going to have any kind of life. Like, it was clear as the nose on my face, So it was there. There was the answer. I was like, man. So I got to an AA meeting as soon as I could, and got a sponsor as soon as I could. And I'm happy to fall into line with some greats like Richard Page and Jerry and that whole group over there in Willow Springs. And they like, I was signed up for this whole outpatient program thing, and man, they just reeled me in, and put me in the middle of AA and worked me through these steps quickly, and they immediately put me to work. Immediately put me to work. The solution was always to pray and try to help somebody, whether it was my wife, whether it was an alcoholic, whether it was somebody at work. It was just this process, this learned process they taught me through working these steps, that it's, I'm going to get relieved of my alcoholism, but my life is a small part of my business anymore, and it's to set me up to serve others. That's where the gift comes. That's why I get to maintain my sobriety, and that's held true for me to this point. So I need to just roll on through a few things. I apologize. I probably stayed drunk a little longer than I should have, but Steve had such a long introduction, he kind of chewed up some of my time. And but I never knew it was an option not to take the suggestions that my sponsor gave me. I just did exactly what these men told me to do. And friendships that I had in AA were just enormously valuable, and I did what I was supposed to do, and I followed in their footsteps, and I got involved in corrections and service work and sponsored people, and a member of my home group. When the door was open, I was there, and try to live by principles, and I remained teachable, I'm a guy that will analyze anything, anything and everything. I have a hard time buying fertilizer because there's so many choices out there. But I've never once questioned that I'm an alcoholic, or why I'm an alcoholic, or do I have to keep doing these things to maintain my sobriety, or this isn't really convenient, or man, this is a big commitment, or I've just never been that. I thank God I was just beaten down so much that I just have fallen in line and followed the process, and it's paid dividends. I can tell you that I have been overpaid in every area of my life, and I don't mean financially at all. There too, probably. So my home life continued to get better, and it is really just, I was able to be present for my kids. And I'll tell you, I'll share this with you, that I had 2 active kids, did a lot of things, everything from scouts to soccer to dance to, band. And I felt like I was at almost everything, but I wasn't. But if I have a conversation with my kids today, I missed a lot of stuff to be at AA. They couldn't tell you what I missed, because when I was present, I was present. I was there, I was engaged, and I was involved, But I was able to raise those kids and maintain complete commitment to my sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous, and stay active and sponsor people and hold service positions and help start groups. And none of that was, God just kind of bent time for me. When I showed up and I was willing to do what I'm supposed to do to stay sober and try to help somebody, God just kind of worked that all out, But that was through good sponsorship in that direction. Just keep focusing on what's next, Just when I thought there would be no way I could get it all done, I'm just marching towards that impossible schedule, somebody would cancel something, But it wasn't me, and it would free up my schedule. So it just kind of worked that way. I can tell you that, about a year into sobriety, my wife wanted to go back to nursing school, been a dream of hers, and I had been a financial provider and created a lot of financial insecurity for my wife. She was always an independent person, So I didn't want to do it. I got to be covered. I got AA, I got things to do. I got to be places, But my sponsor wasn't having any of that, It was all about, hey, you go do what you're supposed to do, And I learned that I need to do the things I'm supposed to be doing without getting a medal every time I do the dishes or change a diaper or go grocery shopping or vacuum. I don't, So I learned all that through that process. Thank God. That's one of the gifts of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll say today that the relationship I have with my wife has been up and down over the years, but each time it has gotten better, it's been a result of my actions. It's been a result of me changing something that I'm doing, my expectations, or trying to enlist these traditions in my marriage and trying to put others' welfare first has changed the whole dynamic of that family, I can tell you that when my kids moved away, I felt I was just kind of really a hard ass all the time. And my kids, I moved them into college, 2 different universities in the same week. And when they left, I came home and I was absolutely at a loss, and I immediately started crying and feeling overwhelmed with regret for every time that I gave somebody a hard time about not doing a chore, or instead of doing it myself, or just being on them all the time. Because all that mattered, all that I was concerned about is I hoped that I lived in a way that was attractive enough that they want to come back and see me because I missed them. So all that stuff just at that point, that snapshot in time didn't matter. So I learned a lesson there. I learned a lesson that the relationship is more important than what people are doing, or whether they're doing what I think they're supposed to be doing, and all those things. And that was a real gift. And I can tell you that this whole deal now, I've got one of my children are struggling, and today, and we had a conversation, and as soon as they came in, what I wanted to say was, I told you so. We discussed this. You should be doing this. But what I did was I sat down and I treated them like I would a sponsee. I said, what's going on? How can I help? I mean, I can't fix your problem, but I'll support you. Maybe. And I didn't fix that. I didn't even offer a suggestion. All I did was lend an ear, a compassionate ear, without an I told you so eyebrow or sigh, And at the end of the day, a couple hours ago, he came up and gave me a big hug, telling me how much he loved me, how much he appreciated that he could come and talk to me. And I can tell you that's a product of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's a product of practicing these traditions in my life, that today that I can be at that level of service, to my family, to my kids, So I've been given so much more in sobriety and Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been given a path forward so I'll wrap up with these 2 things, is that maybe it's 3. I don't know. I've never really counted when I get to this point. But one is that I'm never stuck. Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't put me in a place where I become spiritually saturated, if you will, and there's no more growth for Aaron. This is what you're stuck with. There's just always another level. At any point where I'm at in my life, I can see that next phase. I want to be a better father or a better husband or something. I can move towards that. I can work with my sponsor and try to figure out where I'm lacking, and I can move and I can get better. And especially in today's times that I'm not alone anymore. I felt so alone that a level of isolation and loneliness I don't know that anybody other than an alcoholic can identify with and feel. But I don't have that today. I'm in a room full, essentially, a lot of strangers. I mean, I know some of you, and but I feel comfortable here with you. I feel safe. And I intend to try to offer that to you as well. And I think one of the big things I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, and even today I need to remember this, is that my feelings aren't facts. My emotionals, my feelings are no clear indication on where I am in life today, where sobriety is for me, what's going on, or any of those things. So I need to focus on what I'm doing and where I'm going, not what I'm feeling. And when I do that, I can have some pretty peaceful days. I really appreciate you all listening and for inviting me out. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Great job.